I would say there's 4 distinct things that happen during the average week in YC. First, you have your office hours with your YC partner. The partner is usually an ex-entrepreneur. My first stint, my partners were Gary Town and Jeff Ralston. This time it was Aaron Epstein primarily, and Dalton Caldwell, Nicola, who is the founder of Algolia, and Pete Koopman from Optimizely. So you get to meet these folks and talk to them about what your business has achieved in the last week. Talk to them about specific problems you're facing, especially in the context of metrics you may have set in your initial office hours. So typically when you go into YC, you try and commit to growth metrics like, I'm going to try and hit this revenue target. I'm going to try and hit these many numbers of customers. And you talk to them in the context of these growth targets and try and understand why you overachieved those targets or underachieved those targets. And those half-an-hour sessions tend to be very useful because they have a lot of objective perspective that they can provide through their own experience and by virtue of having seen thousands of startups themselves where they can do that pattern recognition. So those office hours with YC partners is one half of it. The second part, which is super underrated and which technically anybody can do even without getting into YC, is that they put you into groups with other early stage startups that are also going through YC, right? And you sit around almost like an Alcoholics Anonymous group, right? And you, literally a circle, and you each talk about how your week went, oftentimes through, probed or initiated by specific questions of the YC partners who are at the head of the circle asking you questions about. And you just get into this practice about talking openly about your problems. And what that does is, inevitably, one company does particularly well that week. And that introduces this FOMO, that introduces this sort of competitive spirit within you that sometimes may not come about even though you're individually motivated. That social motivation, they found a way to sort of systematize it. So these group office hours, these group sessions tend to be the second big characteristic of YC. The third thing is they usually do a talk, either by an ex-YC founder or by someone famous, about very specific themes, right? And it's the kind of stuff that you do with weekend entrepreneurs. We talk about specific companies, usually their own companies. We talk about specific challenges like hiring or fundraising, and the themes change over time depending on the week in YC. So that tends to be the third thing which we spend a lot of time, which is quite inspiring, especially when you see successful people up on stage who talk about having been in your shoes 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So it shows you what is actually achievable. And I think the fourth bit is kind of offline. You're on YC, you're on Slack channels. YC has an internal forum called Bookface, where people talk about interesting topics, right? Like Facebook. This, I think, came about 11 years ago, almost like a joke. And now I spend more time on Bookface, by the way, than I do on Facebook or Instagram for that matter, right? So the fourth bit is kind of virtual. So you're always in touch. You have a Slack group with your batchmates. So that tends to keep going on. All things considered, you don't commit more than 3 hours a week during YC to YC, right? Which makes you question, like, what am I getting out of 3 hours a week? Do I really need to part with all this equity and all these, and put in all this effort? But somehow they found a way to keep it low effort in terms of time and then high output in terms of value. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. To watch the full episode of my experience at Y Combinator, click on the video here.